Welcome everyone to Livestream number 4 and happy Australia Day for everyone out there. Today is our national public holiday. So yeah, it's been a great day. Great to see everyone here on the live stream, and also welcome to all the people who are watching the replay. Thank you so much for the 4 a.m.ers. I think we might have some 1 a.m.ers too, people who are getting up ridiculously early to watch these live streams. And if you haven't already, please say hello in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. As always, just amazing to see you all here, and I hope that you've been really enjoying adding elements to your pages in the last 2 weeks. I've got some cockatoos squawking at the moment, part of Australia at the moment. What I'm going to be doing today is to be reviewing the last half of the elements. So we're going to be looking at secondary elements, collage, pre-painted pages, and white space. And then I'm going to do a bit of an intro into the lesson 2, which was released into the classroom yesterday. And if you have any specific questions for those elements, I will prompt you as I'm working through it. Otherwise, if you've got any general questions, if you can please leave them till the end of the second half of the live stream when I ask for questions. As always, Chantal is here in the chat, and if you can preface your question with a big caps question, that really helps us as well. So yeah, I love seeing you all again. It's just wonderful to hang out again, and the chat's just going so quickly. Just as a start-off question, I would love to hear from you. What was the favourite element that you added to your page in this past week? I would love that. Okay, I'm glad you enjoy the Australian birds. I have to say the white cockatoos with the squawk is not my favourite sounding bird. Yes, welcome. So elements. Camera is a bit shaky. Is it? Probably because I'm leaning on the table. Please let me know, what element did you enjoy most in the past week? And then we'll kick off from there. It's been a really hot day here today. Colour blocks. Okay. We've got any others coming through? I've definitely been exploring some pre-painted pages a little bit, which is very out of character, and a border written with one line of text. Yes, white space, collage. Okay, maps, color blocks, secondary sketch, text and map. We're probably going to get all of them. White space, good. Maps. I've got a lot to say about white space this week. Secondary sketches, maps, white space. Okay, good. We've got a good across the board. Just going really quickly. There's a bit of a time lag between when I say something and then when you hear me say it and then when you type. So it's like all of a sudden, bang, we get all of the responses. Okay, fantastic. It's really great to see that everyone likes something different, and part of the point of sharing 7 different elements with you is not that I expect you all to use all of them all the time or even some of the time, but to find the ones that really connect with you the most and that are easy for you to incorporate into your work and into your general practice. Okay, so it's completely even across the board, which is really great. Okay, let me get going with the top camera. Here we go. And what I'm going to show you first of all is I'm just going to quickly report on what my pages have been in the last week. And this is my token Australia Day sketch. I didn't do anything Australia based today. It was all sketchbook design today, but I did draw a lamington, and this was on a pre-painted square. Then I drew the lamington and did some white gel pen over it. Yesterday I did a bit of a Scottish landscape. I'll talk about these more when I get to the sections. Why don't we go backwards? Saturday, I had a cup of tea with a lovely tea bag from Wendy. I don't think Wendy's here. I haven't seen it. If Wendy's here, anyway, if you watch the replay, thank you for sending me a Paris tea bag in the mail. So I enjoy doing that. And then I did some quick sketches on a Skype call with my niece and nephew. I didn't have room on the page, so I just stuck it as a flap. This was a day when I hadn't sketched anything, and then at dinner I thought, oh, I better sketch it. And then because I was sketching my dinner, I was sitting here at my table, so I did a bit of a secondary sketch of how my desk is looking at the moment. I find these type of documents of what I'm doing on my desk always really fascinating down the track. This is some swatches for a article that was on my blog last night about a new brush. I think I need to go forwards now. This was a pre-painted crazy sketch at the cafe, which I'll talk about when we get to it. And then I had a little bit of an outing on Thursday. So some of you have seen this on my blog already. One big sketch, some white space, just sitting from my car while I was having a takeaway coffee, and then a sketch of a house with an interesting frame, another map, and a coffee. Okay, so that's just bringing you all up to date with what I've been doing, because I think that's really important. And seriously, as I said last week, I've never been more inspired as I've been working through a course, and never sketched as much during the course as what I've been doing. So that's a huge thanks to everyone and the inspiration that you're giving me. Okay, so what I'm first going to look at is secondary sketches. And like the last 2 weeks, I've got a lot of examples from the classroom. It's so hard to choose, really, really hard to choose. There's so many amazing examples, but I pulled out the ones that spark an idea or a theme. So if you've got any questions about secondary sketches, you can put them into the chat now while I'm talking about it. So I've also done some more bonus pages, which will be in 1.01 tomorrow. So the idea of the secondary sketch is really the idea that you're doing a second sketch from the same story that fills in a gap, or it's because you have got a bit of extra time. It's not necessarily just putting two sketches next to each other. Well, that's my definition of what a secondary sketch is. But what I found in the classroom is a lot of you just used it as a reason to do a second sketch, and have have really found your own way of doing secondary sketches, in which case that's fine. Now let me just, Karen, how do you tip in pages? Stick in pages? Tip in pages? That was just with magic tape. Is that your question? If not, okay. So this is example of someone that started doing kind of the concept of a secondary sketch and ended up with a collection. Okay, so that's completely fine. We've now got cicadas outside. It's going to be a noisy day. It's really a sound of Australian summer today. So once again, I don't care how you take secondary sketches, how you define it for yourself. Okay, and then, so I think there's two main ideas. So if I bring this page back, that I had definitely for secondary sketches. One is, if you do a big scene and there's a detail that you find really interesting that you couldn't do justice in the big scene, then you come and do a secondary just to that detail. I mean, I'm not sure why the chimney would be particularly interesting, but anyway, just humour me, right? So it's adding detail to something you couldn't do justice in your main sketch. And then there's another idea that maybe you only really care about the house, but you want to put it in context, but maybe you don't have the time, or you're a bit scared, like you don't think, like the main sketch is too complex or the lighting isn't right. And so you do a secondary sketch just of something more more of context. Has there to be a hierarchy for the two sketches? So yes, in my idea of what secondary sketches is and defines, yes, there is a main sketch and there's a secondary sketch that is a supporting of the main story. Okay, but if you choose to use secondary sketches in a different way, I don't care, as long as you're sketching and you're creating pages. So it can also, the bottom thing here, it can also help to fill in an awkward gap. If you've got two sketches that maybe are too far apart, pick one of them and do a secondary sketch that explains the story of that. Explain what magic tape is. Magic tape is just clear, that clear cloudy tape from 3M called magic tape. Maybe someone else can answer in the chat. So Franny posted a question in the forum about 2 sketches that she did and said didn't know how to do a secondary element. And so going by my definition of what a secondary element is, I look at the 2 scenes. So one of them is to do with UK and the second one is to do with the US. So for my mind, this is a beautiful sketch. It's standing on its own. But this one here, if you wanted to do a secondary sketch and you wanted to just kind of fill in the space a little bit more, what I would do for a secondary sketch is maybe pick some part of the detail of one of those labels or something and put something in here, maybe, you know, I can't read what you're saying, but because it's too small, something like that. And that's how I would use secondary sketch. And then all of a sudden this then kind of creates a bit more of a frame of that first sketch that then perhaps will indicate to you where to put some text. Okay, Scotch tape. Okay, good. Yes, any secondary sketches. Okay, Scotch tape, good. Okay, now, so here's an example from the classroom of the secondary sketch being a simplified or a line drawing of a more complex scene of the shop where Maureen got these things. Okay, so that's one use that I find. And then once again, when she put that in, she then had, it helped her story in terms of how to connect the 2. Then there's a couple of, something funny happening on my screen. Hold on a minute while I work out what's going on. Okay, that's better. This one here is then move up and across a little bit. 2 details, so doing like little thumbnails. And here's another one where little details from the one thing, things you'll see at Black Crow coffee shop, okay? And you can see in this case, rather than just being isolated thumbnails, they're integrated into the sketch with a bit of texture. It's kind of pseudo color block. Here's one which actually was in the map section, but is a really good example of how I think of secondary sketches. So there's a lovely sketch here of a barn with 2 deer, and then there's a detail then of the three deer sketches. So that's where you can't really, you know, they're just a blob. You don't really get to draw them properly in the main sketch. So you come and do extra sketches as details. Okay, and I'm coming to the end of the secondary sketch pile. So if you've got any more secondary sketches, and I haven't missed anyone, that's good. This is one where this is very on brand. Is that what you'd say for lesson 2 demo for those of you who've already seen it? New sewing machine, and then little drawings of the different feet. So here again, once again, you've got the main story and then you've got the secondary sketches, which are another element. Okay, magic makes me curious. Yes. I don't know why it's called magic tape, because it's invisible, that's right. And while we're talking about that, look, I'm if you haven't realized, I'm pretty like casual about my sketchbook. So I don't know, you probably can't see it. I just like it. You can see the tape on this side. It's over part of the writing, but it doesn't matter to me very much. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so we got any more secondary sketches? Questions before we get on to collage. So get your collage questions ready next. Wow, those crickets or whatever they are outside are really noisy tonight. Sign that it's a really hot day. It's been so hot here today. Okay, so collage. There's a lot of fantastic ideas and work in the classroom, and to a certain extent, it's a whole different art form. And so where you draw the line between how much collage you're happy with in your sketchbook, if you're, you know, a serious sketcher and you only want sketches in your book, then collage might not be something that you want to do very often. Okay, so I just grabbed a few little ideas, things that I haven't thought about. So here we go. Wow, look at this, 100 notes stuck in your book. Drawn over, so this is a good example of bits and pieces. So a bit of collage that's drawn over, then these little bits of old books, and then the heading as well. Here's a page that without the bit of collage on it would have been quite simple, plain. I don't mean that in a negative way, but you can see here that this is then the paper that the new glasses are wrapped in, and there's plenty of white space. It's really easy to fit that in the page, and this is a lovely composition. But a lot of the time, it's actually really hard to fit the collage that you want on your page. I know Mayella has asked a question a few weeks ago about whether you should put the collage on before or after. And my general principle is put it on before, or at least get it before and place it on your page so you know where it's going to be, because it can sometimes be really hard to fit on your page. Prashanta, you've done a great job of fitting it on your page. It takes over the whole page. I know that, I think Martine's here, you tried to do the same thing, and in the end just took the label off the bottle and just ended up cutting out the logo to put it on the page. And I find that's the case with collage a lot for me. Actually, the funniest story that I've ever had with collage is that I was on a work trip coming home from Melbourne. I got on the plane, and I always do a plane sketch. So I actually stuck my boarding pass on my page and started sketching over it. And then there was an announcement saying then there was a problem with the ticketing machine, and they needed to collect our boarding passes. So I actually had to rip it off my book and give it to the guy. Thankfully, he didn't actually notice the kind of random lines over it. But this is one of the problems with collage, right? So yeah, generally try and get the collage that you want on your page before you start your sketch, even if you don't stick it on the page. Okay, so there are times when I've stuck it on the page and then regretted it, but most of the time putting on the page, then at least you make sure it gets on the page. So here's another one, a gorgeous pencil case. I want one, no, from Japan. You can see trying to fit all the little bits and pieces. You've done a great job of that, but sometimes it's quite hard. Here's an interesting idea which I haven't really thought about before, which was to put different watercolor paper, in this case whiter paper than the moleskin, so that it stood out. So I've never really thought about doing that before. Here's an idea of cutting the collage around your sketch as a background. That's another idea that I didn't have. And then these ideas about actually putting the collage on the page as part of the element. So you can see how this is another whole art form in itself that you could go down a great rabbit hole about. And then the last one is even more impressive. Security envelopes are really fantastic things to stick in your book. I went through a phase or a fad, but not the two of them together, a couple of years ago, where I was using them quite a lot. I'll just show you what I've written in my collage book, but if you've got any more other collage questions, put them in the chat now, or else I'll go into pre-painted pages. So this is just my little summary of the things that have come up as a result of looking in the classroom. The idea of using random letters, which I hadn't thought of, just saying it's really hard to fit. Even a business card is often really hard to fit on your page. I don't know if anyone found that. This idea of, it's a bit hard to see, but this is graph paper that I then cut around my sketch as a background. And then the bottom one, I was trying to be a little bit more creative, which was to cut out different colours of green and to make them as part of my sketch. So yeah, lots of really fun ideas. Those last two collages are gorgeous. Yes, aren't they? Fantastic ideas in the classroom. And seriously, I've only just grabbed a few. So if you haven't had a chance to look in the classroom, I really recommend. It's just such an incredible library of ideas and so many inspiring pieces there. So collage questions. Okay. Glue, there is a forum thread. I'm not that knowledgeable about glue. I've tried lots of different types of glue. This is my favorite form of glue because you can put it in the bag and it doesn't need to dry or anything. But I've always used glue tape that says it's archival and acid free, and all of them have made marks and become unstuck over the years. So I think someone in the forum suggested a Tombow brand, but quite hard. Yes, so most of my old sketchbooks are like all of the collage is falling out because of this type of tape that I was using in the early days. These days I just use a Yoo-hoo glue stick, which seems to be more reliable. But once again, when we send the email out tomorrow night, just saying, message myself and Chantal, we'll add a link to the forum post on glue. Okay, pre-painted pages. So this is also another whole topic, but it's just something that's a really fun thing to do. You know, that's really early on. I ran into Rod Stendhal, who goes through and puts random, just single swipes across random pages and just fills the page when she gets to it. And then there's other artists who do a lot more with it. So here's just a few ideas, and then I'll share my own experiences with it. So this first one is, what is it? So it's a great example of just putting a splash of color down, beautiful washes, yellow and red and orange, and then drew over the top. But it was hard to make the painted areas go with the drawing. Okay, so this is one of the things that, you know, when you try and do this technique, that you've got to kind of try and find like a way that works well for you. And like in this particular, I love this. If you were to do another go, I said maybe next time you could put a layer of some opaque material over the top, even if it was just simply a few white gel lines, okay, is the minimum. Oops, I just dropped something in some water. Even if you were to come and add a few, my pen's not going to work very well. But just to get this idea of interacting between those two layers is be really fun. You can see here, this one here, because there's a little bit more black, there seems to be a little bit more connection between the two layers, even though it's done in exactly the same way. So just another thing too, I absolutely love seeing all of these sketchbook pages with different languages, and thank you for everyone when they explain English. I just love how multicultural our classroom is. Another one which is really fun, with two cat sketches, a little fella over here as well. Once again, it's just really fun to see that interplay. Like you wouldn't normally. The thing is, if you were to put paint over like later, you probably wouldn't get the same amount of magic and randomness as you do when you put it down first. And that's really the kind of magic of this approach. Here's an example which does now start using a bit of that opaque paint over the top so that you get the blue, the green, and a little bit of white. And so that's really what the people who do this all the time, that's the way they work. Here's a really cute idea of a rainbow of birds, so different colors, and then once again drawing over the top, not necessarily putting a little bit more paint, but because the color related to the bird, there wasn't a lot to do there. Okay, so I've now just got my examples to talk through. So any other questions on pre-painted pages, ask them now before I get on to the main topic which I want to talk about today, which is white space. Okay. So the first sketch that I did, though I did one that I included in the classroom, I thought I'd have another go, is I am looking at my scene and I am thinking a little bit about, okay, there's some brown chairs here, there's a white coffee machine there, and there's a bit of light the yellow there. But apart from it, the rest of it was really quite random. And then I then came and drew over it, um, and then started working on it. Now, I decided, actually I should have taken a photo of it before I added opaque. What I decided to do then is I didn't have to reclaim very much, but I came back and just reclaimed a bit of white through here, through this here, and through here, and then on the tree as well, just so that you could read it and it looked a little less random. But I mean, I don't know, it's a fun experiment. I'm not sure I will do this again. And then I did 2 more examples. So this is yesterday. So my good old Scottish landscapes. Okay, I know. Isle of Harris, this one is. So this was actually the colours that I put down. So I taped the area and I put down pink and yellow and blue, completely random. I actually did this before I drew over it. So this was taken after. And then I reclaimed the white again, and then just put the green over so you can see the touches of pink. And then I got a bit of white gouache for the sky to block that out. But what's really interesting about when you work this way is that sometimes there's just some magic area. So you can see there's this glow here, which I would never have done before. And it just happens to be there in the right spot. So that's part of the magic of this pre-painted, is that there's often like these real surprise package things that you wouldn't expect to happen. Question: how do you manage not to get distracted by the paint when trying to work out perspective, straight lines, etc.? I suppose it's just a bit of experience, is that I know what I'm drawing, and I'm not doing these experiments on a very complex scene that I don't know how to draw. Like, I've drawn this cafe scene how many times in the past couple of years, so I know it. It's really just a matter of like trying to just switch my brain off and draw one line after the other, and get the main edges in. And yes, it is a little bit distracting at times, but I'm able to switch it off because I feel as if that's a different part of my brain. So those of you who've done foundations, when I'm drawing, I'm feeling edges and I'm not thinking about shapes at the time. So that brain just kicks in and I just think about one edge after the other. And then this is just the Lamington sketch. Basically, I knew the Lamington it's a sponge covered in chocolate within coconut. So I knew that, okay, it's a dark object. So I'm going to be able to paint that over the watercolor, and then I just come with my white gel pen and put it over the top. But what's kind of fun is these kind of glimpses of green coming under it. So this is kind of really fun for me to do. I don't know I'm going to do it a lot because I much prefer transparent watercolor rather than, this is way too opaque for me. But really fun to try something different. Okay, so time to get onto white space. Let me just see what was in my back of my book. Yeah, I didn't do anything on painted areas. Okay, so I think I'm going to lose my voice today. Okay, I'm up to date with questions. That's good. Okay, so if you've got any white space questions, please fire them into the chat at the moment. And I'm going to start off with Diane's question about white space. So she asked, what if I could clarify what I meant by white space, because she's thinking about white space being the space that's around your sketch. So in terms of the white space that's in the sketch, around the perimeter of the sketch, as opposed to white rectangles on the page. And the answer is I'm referring to both of them. So this is actually Diane's work. So I went and looked at Diane's work to see her example, and she's like really thinking about the white space that's coming in and out of the sketch as it sits on the page. And then the next one is in a way a similar sketch, but just the fact of like zooming out or having a bit more white space here, all of a sudden you think, okay, so this has got an excessive amount of white space. Not excessive is a negative, but much more white space. All of a sudden I start thinking about this as more being the paper rather than related to the sketch. Okay, so it's a fine distinction, but let me just see what I've got in my little book here. So if you do a sketch on a single page, then what you're talking about, thinking about white space, is probably the relationship between the sketch and the perimeter. But if your sketch is small, then the white space then becomes more the shape of the page, what's on the paper, and how it connects with the next one. How do you say the amount of white space is good? Which one is too much, so that you have to add something? I think that that's a very personal question. And as I go through these examples, I'm going to pose some of those questions. It's up to you for you to decide. And I think also that sometimes the white space on a single page might look too blank if you just look at that page, but in the sequence of the whole book, it's like my page here, I'm zoomed in a little bit now, but like you think, oh, that's a kind of a really empty page, it's a waste of a page. But in the context of having two very full painted pages, I really love this breath of air, okay? Am I thinking about it as negative space when painting? Yes, it's the same idea, it's the same thought process. It's just in this case, negative space is something that you paint. Here, it's actually the white of the paper that's left, okay? So here's another example of a gorgeous sketch. Oh, so cute. Which is basically going to the perimeter. So the white space here is very much then just the white space part of the sketch. It's got nothing to do with page layout as such. It's more to do with white space on the page. Okay, does that make sense? But then you get into then some ambiguous ones. So this is, I want to zoom in a little bit. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit and still be big enough for everyone. Okay, so this is really fun. So this border of this sketch is by the surrounding buildings. Okay, so that's fine. And if all we had was just that page, that'd be fun. But because we're working in a sketchbook, we've now got this second page. And the comment is, I'm tempted to leave the left page empty as well. And so if you feel like leaving that white and it feels good to you, leave it. Because I just think this is just like, we do have a tendency to put so much on a page. If you feel really that tendency of, I want just a blank page, go with it. You know, you can always come back and add something later. Okay, sorry. Another really fun border. So this one is one where the border is the tree. That's really, really fun. But Sheila's then come and put things inside that. Unlike the last one, which was left open, this one is then valuable space to use, okay? And then I've got a couple of examples of double page spreads or pages which only have a sketch on it. So I know for this lesson we've been talking about elements and we've been putting a lot of extra things, but the reality is most of your sketchbook pages are just basically a sketch and maybe a little bit of text. Okay, so that's where we really, this idea of white space is the most important element, because it kind of creates variety even if we're not doing a lot of extra maps and color blocks and collage and all the rest. So in this one here, there's a really strong white shape that is related to the sky. And like my gut feeling is I almost just want this to just come and continue that, just so the white space, I've just ruined it, you can't see what I was talking about, but because that stopped there, this white space was coming down here, and I felt like it was a little bit, it would be stronger if it was more just this big shape. So my personal preference when it comes to white space is to try and get big shapes, okay? So some of the suggestions or ideas that I'm going to use off these examples are really my preference, and not necessarily saying that it's necessarily better. It's just the way I would approach it. Okay, so here's another one where you can see a very cool building you can see that we've got, once again, we've got this white space that's coming up and around. Can you see that in the yellow? I don't want it to, actually it comes down here, okay? So by drawing it, sometimes it's really fun to be able to see that. And then, so the thing that's distracting me a little bit is that this really good, strong white space, this heading here, I almost feel like if there was a little less white space here, there was a border around it or something, then we'd quite clearly have white space and then drawing and text as a block, okay? So those of you who've started to look at lesson 2 videos when I talk about positive and negative, the idea that you want this to read all as a positive, and then the negative being the white space is contrast. And then here's a, can I fit it in without zooming up? But this is another fun one. But in this case, Jenny's actually drawn right to the edge, right? So it's got a really solid base to it. And then you've got the white space above it. And then very cute way of writing white space in a way that's not distracting or weakening that white space. Okay, so that's one of the other things, is when you have a white space and you want to add text, how do you do that in a way that keeps the white space shape really strong? I'll come to some examples in a minute. And then there were some examples of putting a border around a white space. And this is really fun. This is one of the great things about this course, is I'm getting so many ideas, like last week when we were doing borders, and I realized, like, you know, I hardly ever put something in the corner of my borders, right? That's just a personal quirk that I had. The same thing, I realized, hey, I rarely would put a really big border around white space, but it works here. And so, but I asked that question, is like, if you did a page like this and you felt like it was a little bit empty there, because you're actually bordering, you're actually drawing a line around something that doesn't exist, if you know what I mean, you're putting a border around white space, then just come and add something. And here's another one where this then is a drawn element that's become like a border. Another gorgeous page. And you know, it's up to you whether you think it needs it. I think this one could have something in here more than the other one, but like, that's my personal preference. So let me just check to see what I was doing in my book as a bit of a recap, if you've got any questions on these ideas. So this is what we're talking about, white space for the sketch rather than the page. This idea is if you've got a sketch and you're using the white space of the sky to try and, you know, possibly even colour in this section here, extend it all the way to the page, so that it's strong. We can vary borders. And then just the question, if you're adding a border, is it weakening your white space shape, or does the white space that's been framed by the border feel like you need something? Okay. Okay, got to make sure I keep my voice going. We're nearly down the pile, which means I might actually do a really quick demo today. Oh, really quick one. Okay, so I've got a couple of examples of now what you do with your text when you've kept this lovely area of white space. So here's a great example of just a few things in the middle of the page, asymmetrically placed in the spread, bit of color block, and then there's 3 different bits of text added. My personal preference is to try and bunch them together. So maybe this could come down here, and then the working from home could come here. So now all of a sudden I've got a bit of a block of these 3 elements, and then I can work out where is the best place to put that. Here's another page where this is working really well. So once again, I'm not saying, you know, my suggestion is necessarily better. It's just the way I would approach it. Once again, maybe you can actually join them together, bring them down here, and then you have a big square of white space. Okay, so you can see my preference. Maybe it's because I'm an architect. I like big white spaces. Here's a fun example with like, I love the way you've done the olive there. When I look at it, I'm kind of thinking, is there something else that needs to go there? Why is it up there? yeah, maybe it does. This is a case where I'm kind of feeling it could afford to do something there, or else, you know, it could have also come and just been down here connected, like it could have been. I'm just facing people's pages. I hope you don't mind. If I put that there, then we still preserve the big white shape like that. Okay. I'm sharing all the secrets behind the way I design my pages. Do you realize I won't have anything new to show you after I finish this course. Okay, so here's another one. Not sure if it works, but I thought the subject matter needed the space. I love the space. I love the idea of the candle up in the window. I love the fact it's up there. And, you know, balancing down here, there's nothing wrong with that. My initial reaction before I read the text was to put, I'm just going to put this in yellow. Oh, that's going to be confusing, isn't it? Okay. Was to actually join things together so that you have a big, like L-shaped white space, but you could also put that text under here, and then you've got a really strong shape, vertical shape, but you still get that sense of it being up, like looking up, which is what I get when I see this page. Okay, so that's once again, I mean, I didn't tell you how to use your white space, did I? This is what we're getting into in lesson 2 and 3 and 4. Same one here. The comment was there was too much white space, so I did a border with the text around it, which is very cool. Once again, this thing here, I don't think this is a problem down here, and also I don't know what's happening on the other page. So it's really hard for me to, you know, to ever criticize someone, you know, do a critique of someone's page where I can't actually see the full spread. But this is a case where if you did really like this and you always put a date stamp, you could like explore putting it inside the border as well. So I know a lot of people do these, so don't be afraid to actually put these inside your sketches at times. Yeah, random pages are good. I love a good random page. If I was to approach a page like this from a white space perspective, you know, the white is going in and out. It's also coming all in here. So if I just ignore the text up there for a moment, what I would do is probably in this one, if I'm thinking about I want a really crisp white shape, is I would probably come and put a border around it, right? And I think about where to put the border related to, oh, that wasn't really very well done there anyway, but related to the white space thicknesses, okay? So I'm trying to vary the white spaces as I go around. And then once I've done the border, I think, oh, where's the best place to put the text? Maybe it's down here, or maybe I like that white space there, or maybe I come and put it down here. Okay, so I work one step at a time. Once I make a decision to do one thing, it then informs what the next decision is going to be. More about that in lesson 4. The hour goes so quickly. I've got so much in the classroom to talk about. Here's someone who, Maria, was would normally not have left this white space. I really like that. I just feel here, once again, is like, okay, that's got a nice border, come down through here. It's a little bit hard to do a border through there. But that then ties this up and then relates the two together, because the white space on this page was distracting me a little bit from the big white space here. Yeah, beautiful sketches though. So they're good. Just a few more to go. And once again, this is where you put two, this is where you've got different opinion of a spread when you look at two separate ones. And when you do one at a time, when you come and do the second one, this is when you start thinking about what's on the first one, how can I relate, how does the two pages work together? And there's quite a lot of options. You've got plenty of white space here, so you could come and do things like, I don't know, I have not actually thought about this one, but we could put a border around there. I almost want something, yeah, I don't know. This is me. I'd probably write a bit more here and get a column of text that goes all the way there, and then the pages are tied together. Okay, and then those last 3 examples are really interesting ones, because it made me realize, hey, I don't think I ever have a big diagonal white space and how to deal with it. So I really love the text coming down here. Yeah, this person said that found this big wedge of white space very challenging. I think you've done a good idea to put the text there that has a lot of space, but you can see how this strong diagonal is actually quite hard to then come and put a block of text on. Same with this one. Although this one does have a little bit of vertical, so there is some space here that you could possibly put some text and leave the big diagonal. And the last one is a similar type of thing where I think this is a good compromise once again, but I would probably, just my obsession with big white spaces, have started it here so that that white space read as a block. But when I saw these, I realized, what I normally do, can I find something I can do, is I normally, when I have a big diagonal like this, I'd actually bring the foreground down a little bit as a vertical so that it then gives me something so I could come and anchor. This is changing this sketch. So I'm not saying do it to this sketch. I'm just saying that's how I approach. I realized, and this is what's, I do something, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily do something like that then I can then come and hang this onto, okay? So it still has the diagonal, but I'm putting a vertical element that I can then introduce the vertical and the horizontal. So that's my obsession. And that's basically what I've just summarized in this page. So any more white space questions? I've gone through a lot really, really quickly. So just fire them, add them into the chat, or any other questions related to the elements. So Ellen asked, how do I know when to stop adding elements? I find this is a new way to overwork my spread. So I think that in a way this lesson has been a little bit unusual in that you're intentionally trying to add all of these different elements. Normally, I only add the elements apart from text and obviously thinking very carefully about white space all the time. I normally only ever add the elements if I feel like I need it, if there's a big white space and I feel like I need it. Okay, so rather than think, I've got to add all these elements, just sketch normally. Sketch with lots of white space and then assess your page at the end of the day or a little bit later and use those elements if you think they're going to add something to it. So that's kind of my approach to that. There's a few more questions about text. So Barbara was asking, in regard to writing text on a page, I have trouble writing anything other than the day and the date and maybe a title of what I sketched. Any advice as to how to come up with words, ideas, text? Now, if this is not already in the forum, and we'll have to go and have a check, this would be a great topic for the forum because I know a lot of you would have fantastic ideas. But what I like to think about when I do my pages, it's time to zoom out a little bit, I think, is I'm basically documenting my day. Now, this is not going to be something that everyone's going to do, but I actually write down what I worked on, how I felt about what I worked, slow working on lesson 2 pages, then all of lesson 4. I write those kind of things, and interestingly, it's like because I have found that when I go back and look at my page, I always wish I'd written more about what was going on in the background. You always remember the sketch itself, but you hardly remember how it connects with other things in your life. So that's kind of my idea, is like, what were you thinking at the time when you did the sketch? What other random stuff happens in your day? And oh yeah, this one here, I have a quote from one of the waiters who said to me that he was the best guy in Sydney, and he corrected saying the best guy in the whole world, right? So I had to write it down, and I had to get him to sign it. So that's kind of just fun, like completely random stuff. I'll probably look at this in 10 years' time. I've got no idea who JP is. Okay. I tend to write too much text. Yes. That's actually yes, a bit of a. I mean, I can never. I always feel like I never have enough space for my text, so I try to abbreviate my sentences if I need to. Um, I think about what I enjoy reading in the future. Poetry facts about places, the feelings of the place. Yes, totally. I write less text, but I'm also abbreviating a lot of stuff as well. I think we've mentioned this before. I abbreviate people's names. I've got no idea down the track who they are. So I'm going to start implementing an index at the back of my book one day when I think about it. I love it when the pages tell details I would have forgotten otherwise. That might be sketch or the words added. I normally find that the text is the things I've forgotten. And I remember, like, I look at a sketch and I can remember all the things I was thinking at the time, the conversations, but the text, like, would I have remembered that I did this after Livestream 3? Yeah, probably. Like, I wouldn't have, but now that I go, right, yeah, well, the craziness of it was good reaction to how I feel after doing one of these live streams. Okay, so yeah, I just write bits and pieces. It was fun to do while watching, listening to videos from Atomic School. Nice to learn something new. Really can't remember much from my chemistry classes in high school. So that's what I wrote on the side of this. Doesn't really tell me, actually doesn't even tell me anything about the fact that my nephew is obsessed with it at the moment. But I know I'll remember that, but I won't remember what I was watching at the time. There's also a question about how do I know when to use different colored inks? There's no real rhyme and reason for it. Basically, at the moment, I really only have the blue text, and I use that when I want to do call out notes like this, or if I feel like a bit of extra color will tie in, but there's absolutely no scientific reason behind why I use certain colors. We got some. Let's start talking about lesson 2 then, hey? So I just pulled this lovely sketch out. Let's zoom back in so you can see this. I think this was in the borders section by Debbie, Alaska trip. What we're going into for lesson 2, and we've only got 1 week for lesson 2 as well. There was a little bit of confusion the way I wrote my email. So we have 1 lesson for lesson 2 where we're going to be looking at what I'm calling contained compositions, and then lesson 3 will look at open and overlapping type of compositions. So the idea is this week, once again, you've got any subject matter, but I want you to just make sure that everything is separated, put on the page, not so it doesn't overlap, so it sits next to each other. And the most logical way of doing that is to put things in borders. So here's my demo. Here's my demo. Zoom back out. Where, I put I put some things random on the page, but then I drew a box around it. I had the sewing machine, I have a text block, I have another thing. So this doesn't have a border around it, but it's separated and it's distinct on the page. So that's the idea of lesson 2, is to have fun. Starting off the week doing some very structured layouts where you put borders around things, very symmetrical, divide your page into 2 or into 3, and find some standard like divisions of your page, which might be very useful, and then progress to doing some more asymmetrical, but still very framed. And by framed, it doesn't mean you have to go to the edge, just maybe draw your sketch and draw a frame around it. And then you can start experimenting a little bit, but you're trying to avoid overlapping. So this is going to be easy for some people and really hard for other people. And it's going to be really hard for me, I can tell you now, because this page, which looks very, very contained, I still couldn't help overlapping this block of text with this border. So I'm definitely an overlapping girl. For me, I'm going to really try and do a completely contained week. It's going to be really, really hard for me. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Oh, I just noticed the time. So much for a quick demo. I've got 6 minutes to do a demo. Can I do it? So if you've got any questions, just general questions, chuck them into the chat now, because I'm going to be going over time a little bit again today. So I've just got my paint out, right? I just love talking about your work so much. Really hard for me too. Okay, so but it's going to be fun, right? Okay, I know some of you are going, oh, I don't want to draw borders around everything, but hey, you know, the whole point of it is that as we start doing this, we will start contained strategies. We'll start to become really aware of alignment, of horizontal versus vertical, positive versus negative, proximity, how close to put things together. And, you know, we'll start thinking about whether we are happy to plan beforehand or whether we can put it on afterwards. So because it's Australia Day, I'm actually going to do an Australian landscape, not a Scottish one. Sorry, Fiona and Elaine. Who else is here from Scotland? And I haven't even got my brush out. Isn't that pathetic? Hey, new brush. Okay. Livestream 2 is in lesson 1 section. How to upload my drawings. Please use the contact form, contact Chantal using the contact form if you've got any questions. Sharpening the pencil and improvising in the demo. Okay, all the three sisters, close to where I live. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is going to be, I just have no idea, but I just have to paint, right? Because I just haven't done any painting on this all of these live streams. So for those of you, what brush are you using? This is the new red dot rosemary equivalent of my dagger brush. Okay, so this is 100% synthetic. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to come and so what am I going to do? This is in my actual sketchbook. I'm just going to do a really quick sketch. I need something to wash my brush, to wipe my brush, which you can't see. You can't see my palette. Okay, and I'm going to answer questions while I'm going, so I won't go overboard. So probably like last week, another 15 minutes. If you have to go, you have to go. You can watch the replay. I'm going to put this on the page and then try and work out a contained layout that I'll finish off camera. Okay, so here we go. What am I going to do? So these are the three sisters. So this is the famous rock formation that's just outside of Sydney, an hour outside. I'm going to just do this really quick. So this is just going to be or just put it on the page. Now, how do I know where to put it on the page? I just thought this, if I put it there, I can extend that way. I can play with it a little bit. Come down through here. In preparation for this, I thought I would try and find a topographic map of the three sisters and draw a bit of a secondary sketch, but I couldn't find one. So if anyone finds something like that, I'd love to see it. I want to see them from top. Okay. Bit of Australian green. And you can't quite see my palette. Can I zoom out a little bit more? Oh, I can. You can see all the junk around my page. Okay, here we go. This green is going to explode and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But hey, this is called a 5-minute sketch. This is 5-minute landscape as opposed to 5-minute architecture, which is the book I did, right? Okay. Just put a little bit of green on there. What I'm basically just trying to do is to get something really quick on the page so that we can then talk about layout, contained layout. So I am not starting this page in a contained way at all. I'm just starting my usual type of crazy, and maybe I'll just do some pen. With the contained work, yes, you can go over the fold of the page. Good question. Although it'd be fun for me to try not to do that for a week. That's another one of my obsessions, which I will talk about a little bit more in lesson 3. Okay, so you realise this isn't a serious sketch. This is just a really quick, end of the day, hot day. Come down through here. I don't know. Now, one time I came up to the Blue Mountains, I saw something shiny on one of these sisters, I think this third sister, and I got out my telephoto lens and I noticed it looked like a Christmas tree up there, and it was a remnants of a Christmas tree. Sorry, I'm rambling. This is what happens when I sketch. What do you write about? You write about the memories. You start drawing and you start remembering stuff. Anyway, I'm just remembering the Christmas tree. Anyway, the funny part about that story is I later on realized that one of my friends was one of the guys that actually did that. It's very illegal, so I'm not friends with that person anymore. No, not like that. But okay, I'm rambling. Let's come and I need to put some dark. Okay. So this, in a way, is just my first kind of wash. Very, very quick. Maybe next week I'll do a proper demo. Okay, so and perhaps it wasn't the best time to use a brand new brush that I haven't been completely tested yet. But okay, so that's my sketch done. Enough to work out layout. Okay, so one of the things that I am going to be sharing more about in lesson 4 is the way that I work and how it relates very much. Okay, so I've now got this on the page, and I've got to work contained, which means I either decide to come and put color, put a frame around this, and come and add the blue mountain. This is Blue Mountains because the eucalyptus oil makes the mountains look more blue than normal, even like close mountains. I could do that, or I could just draw a border. So let's just draw a border because it's late. I'm going to come through here and just quickly add a border. And because this is a contained week, I can't bring my text inside that. So I'm just going to come and draw a border. I'm going to think about varying the white space around it. That's a very hard line to draw. And then I think about, well, what's my remaining white space? So now I think I've put a frame around that, and I am actually going to, this is just really the first pass of my paint. Okay, so I might come and add a little bit more, but now I think, okay, should I come and put a bit more paint? I have a feeling that I want to put a bit more paint coming down here. I want to fill this in a little bit more. That's a kind of okay. And then I think about how much text do I want to write? Is there something else that I'm going to draw? I don't know. I don't think so. So basically, if I just get a pencil out somewhere, my gut feeling. So this is where I just go with my gut feeling. Is I come and put a text block here, and I'll summarize how crazy this live stream is, but what an amazing group you are, all the great questions. And okay, so yes, okay, so there's plenty. Chloe's asking a good question. So there's a lot of gray areas between contained and open. So I think if it comes out of the border a little bit, that's okay. What you're trying and do is try and avoid is just overlapping elements. So yeah, this is a case where, yeah, this comes out, but the border is now containing that sketch. So if I hadn't done that border, this would have felt much more open, wouldn't it? So putting the border around it is really like containing it, and then I can come and put some text there. Any other questions? It's pretty crazy, wasn't it? As I just randomly throw some paint on the page. I don't do many Australian landscapes. All my landscapes are always Scottish ones. So yeah, I mean, once this dries, I'm going to perhaps put a little bit more on, add the text. I might then scan it and then come and add a bit more color. Because for me, I'm now looking and going, I would like to put some of that blue on this page. I feel like it's too, too brown and green. Or I could do another sketch here, which would then come and, you meant it as a bit of a joke, but it's a good question. It's good. Okay. Any more questions? So there you go. I managed to do a demo in under 10 minutes. Is that right? Okay. So yeah, I know it's pretty. This is extremely quick. One of these days, I'll do a careful demo on a live stream when you've got no more questions to ask me. So, any general questions? Um, there was a question from Barbara about mixing fountain pen inks, which is something I only do with Diatramentis document ink. So I suggested she create a forum thread for that. And also, can I just please ask if you have any materials questions, if you could use the forum for that rather than the lesson questions. The lesson questions are really questions for me related to the lesson topics. And another thing that Chantal and I wanted to add was the PDF files, because they have large images, sometimes don't print properly. We think it's mainly a printer memory problem. So it's actually our forum thread that just started today asking question about that. But we've also put a smaller version in smaller breakdowns and pages as well. So if you're having any trouble printing, check out that forum post. I'm glad that you enjoyed my crazy sketch. I limit myself to 2 or 3 colors or more. No, not particularly. So how many colors did I use in this particular scene? I used my Montamiata, my French ultramarine, my sap green, a bit of this pre-mixed grey. Yeah, that was probably it. But I have no problems putting a lot of colour in because I know my colours very well and I know how they come together. How do you prevent the page looking too much like an illustration comics if it's all contained? Well, I suppose the question is, what do you mean by that? I mean, this is very interesting page, and part of that is to maybe vary the size of it, put some white space. You don't have to put a border around it. That's one of the great things to explore this week. How do you, how can you come up with this type of contained thing that is fun and experimental? And I think a lot of the examples from my own collection are not very cartoon or comic illustration like. I'm not very good at doing really distinct contained sketches either, but that's a great thing to talk about next week in the live stream. So any more final questions? Otherwise, I'll wrap it up because we're a little bit past the hour. I went over as always. Thanks. Yes, Star. One day I'm going to come up and visit you all up there, okay? I am. I'm really, really overdue for a visit to the Blue Mountains. And my favourite spot is Pulpit Rock, which you'll see in the gallery at some stage. Okay, good. I'm glad you enjoyed my crazy demo. And some Australian sunshine. Yes, very grey outside. Yes, it's been very hot here today. Yeah, 40 degrees. It's been hot. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Keep up your work. Yeah, and of course, if you've got any questions, ask them in the lesson 2 section about lesson 2. Otherwise, try and be very contained this week. Leave things next to each other. Really think about alignment and placement, positive, negative, horizontal versus vertical. And experiment and have fun. So thank you again, everyone, so much. Absolutely loved hanging out with you. I'll see you in the classroom. Okay, bye.